Let's see. It was
It is
recording.
23rd of August. Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos.
All right, fine.
Good
Thank
morning,
you.
Rabbi Furst, and good
Good
morning,
morning, Roy.
Mary
Good
and
morning.
Good morning, Roy.
Okay. Let's see. So we're going to pick up where we left off. I think that was in um, paragraph
6, I think.
6. Is that
We're up to
true?
6, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Very good. Let's start 6 again. We did it. I think we went a little bit into it, but we'll start again fresh. Let's again starting with paragraph 6. Yeah. Who would like to read, Mayor or Roy or Lou? Was there any volunteers?
I volunteer.
Okay. So before Shlomo, sounds like you have a bit of a cold, Lou.
Yeah, I've got something really bad. Some kind of a throat and sinus infection that's really plaguing me.
Oh, before Shalema.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Vodka.
Vodka.
I'm serious. Gargle.
Gargle with vodka. Okay.
Ah,
That'll
I'm serious.
numb the throat anyway.
What? I don't even know.
V'hinei kavar biyarno b'chelek shane.
Prepare in the second. This is the Ramchal, Rav Chaim Moshe Litzato in his Sefer Derech Hashem, which is broken down into to several different major sections. So in the second section, he already went into this point previously, but now he's repeating it now in another way, in a bit more, perhaps in more depth.
Okay, so we've already seen a portion, the second section.
Well, Be'eranu, we've explained. This has been explained previously in the second section.
Shachmo she'ein midas hadin.
Shikamo, shikamo, just as if, or just like. Shikamo, just as if, just like.
Just like shikamo she'ein midas hadin, that it's not the attribute of justice, none sheyagi tov livnei ha'adam im lo yizko lo kain nechok hamishpat atzmo hu.
Let's go back over this here. Go ahead.
It's not the midas, it's not the characteristic of justice that gives what shiagia
that he should achieve. Meaning, kamosha ein midas adin no senes shegia tov lebnei adam. Meaning, just as midas adin. Meaning, what is midas adin? Midas adin is, we think midas adin is a bad thing, right? But midas adin is din is really is like tzedek mishpat tzedek din. That's the way it should be. That's without any mixture of rachamim, of mercy, of compassion. But midas adin is really midas adin is a very good thing. Midas adin is the way it should be, right? So the way it should be is that midas adin would really call for that agia tov lebnei adam, meaning that people should receive good, that people should receive things that are good, right? Midas adin says they shouldn't get that im lo yizkubo b'choizek hamishpat atzmahu. They shouldn't get anything that is. They shouldn't get anything good unless they actually deserve it. Meaning, Mishpat says that people shouldn't get something good unless they actually deserve it, right? Now, why is that? Maybe we'll take a time out and discuss why should that be? Why should it be that midas din, that it's really to the person's benefit that he doesn't get something good unless he really deserves it? Now, why should that be? Do we, first of all, do we accept that as a basic premise? And yes, if no, no. And secondly, if we do accept it as a premise, then what's the rationale behind it? What kind of rationale can it be that's saying that you shouldn't get something good unless you actually deserve it?
What would be the point of trying to aim for getting something good if you're going to get it anyway? You just sit back and get.
Roy, your approach is based on your from the motivational approach. You're taking a motivational approach, meaning if a person's going to get good, and if he's going to deserve it or not, so why should he have any incentive to do anything? So I really I heard this from a person when in Lou was with me in Prague a month ago, beginning of the Ben Ismanim. So when my original first trip to Prague in 1977, I met there a young journalist. He was a young chess journalist, and at that time, if you remember, the Czechoslovakia, as it was called then, was under Soviet rule. It was under Soviet rule, right? So he was telling me, since the Soviets came in, right, nobody has any motivation to do anything, because people are going to receive what they receive from the government, whether they produce, whether they don't produce, whether they work, whether they don't work. So there's no incentive for people to work because they're going to get the exact same thing whether they work or not. So I think that you're stating that exact situation. Okay, so that's reasonable. That's reasonable.
That's one thing anyway.
Excuse me.
That's one point.
Yeah, that's right. There might be different ways to look at it as well, but that's one basic way of looking at it. Right? Very good. Okay. Fine. All right, let's continue on.
Mechok mishpat atzmohu, from the laws and statutes that apply to himself.
Well, it itself, the chok and mishpat itself, meaning it's only logically and righteously and purposely proper that people shouldn't receive things unless they actually earn them, right?
Right.
That's a big that's a problem. By the way, that's a problem both from the communist way of looking things, and it's also the problem from a welfare state point of view as well, right? Whether people get things, whether they work for it or not, because that's just the way the government wants that everyone should be equal, or that they feel that they're benefiting people that are not working. So that also destroys the society. Unless we're talking about a few, maybe minor percent of the population that they're handicapped in some severe ways, can't benefit themselves. Okay.
The maasim mean ha maasim she yasu b'nei adam.
Right. Go ahead, Lou.
With the deeds that are done by people.
Exactly. Right. Meaning people should earn their rewards. Simply put, people simply should look through their behaviors and deeds that they do. Yeah, very basic, very clear and basic.
Um, Behigam, behig malam, hagmul, haroi, lahem, lefi, inam, aninam, inyanim.
Right.
To complete what is proper for them.
Well, here, hagamul, the reward that they receive, that's fit for them. Gamul is a reward. The reward that they receive for them, that's fit for them. The fee,
That's fit for them.
right? Roy, that word Roy, that means fit. So the reward that they receive, that's fit for them, that's proper for them to receive. Haim lefi inyanim. That is according to their situation. Inyanim, like their situation.
So is that's as opposed to what they merit?
Yeah, well, that is no. This is their merit. Their merit is according to what they have been doing, according to their deeds and behavior. Each reward will be fitting to them according to their situation, based on their actions.
So let's say a person has asthma, and
Right.
so therefore he needs an inhaler.
Okay.
And so he's going to work, and as a result of his work, they're going to give him an inhaler.
Okay.
So that, to me, that would be getting what he needs according to his situation. But the another person might do the same work, and let's say he has a carpal tunnel syndrome, so he needs a wrist brace. So he's going to get a wrist brace for doing the same exact work.
Right.
So is that what it's talking about when it says inyanin?
Well, it's really based on their behaviors. He's emphasizing the that's what he meant in the previous sentence, that it's based on their behaviors that they do. That's going to be the real criteria for what people are supposed to receive in terms of reward, is specifically based on their behaviors.
So it doesn't necessarily have to do with what they need.
Right. I mean, if a person needs something, so that's a need that they have. That's not based on. We're talking about the receiving rewards here, which the rewards are based on their behaviors.
Right. So I don't get what the word inyan is doing here.
No, because that's according, that's like the sum total of all their efforts and behaviors. They're in Yanim. There's basically their situation, not necessarily, not in terms of receiving rewards. In terms of receiving rewards,
But not in terms in their situation, in terms of the work that they do, not in terms of what they need.
right? Exactly. Right.
Sheyin noheg imahem biklal dinam berachamim uve chamla uvechemla below you duck alehem bedikduk gemur. So it is customary for them in general with justice and mercy. And what is chemla uvechemla?
Okay, chemla is also like mercy and compassion.
And compassion, and not what is this dakduk?
And it will not be critical, will not be critical.
Not be critical of them, and critical
Predicted come with a absolute criticism, without absolute criticism.
okay, I'm lost. What's the criticism got to do with something, with anything?
So this is in terms of his judgment, right? The person who's going to be judged. The question is, how is this person going to be judged? Is he going to be judged critically, or is going to be judged in a way of judging him that allows compensation for his failings, right?
It says dinam berachamim. That seems to be contradictory. You're going to judge him with justice or with mercy?
No, this is there. You can judge him with mercy. You can judge him with mercy, which means you're not going to be absolutely critical of everything that he's done.
Oh, right? I got it. Okay, so this seems maybe to be contradictory in that it's saying he should receive the reward that is fitting based on what he has done.
Right.
But he should be judged with mercy and compassion and not criticized.
Right. So that's the two aspects, right? The two aspects is there's midas hadin and midas harachamim, right?
Right.
So when it comes to judgment, the question is it preferable to be judged through din, or is it preferable to be judged with rachamim, right? So that's not the definitive question. I mean, there's no definitive answer about that. It depends on the situation.
So he's receiving his reward on the basis of midas hadin.
Right.
And he's receiving his judgment on the basis of midas harachamim.
Right. And these are two aspects of what's occurring. I mean, he's gonna relate this to Rosh Hashanah. There are two aspects of what's happening on Rosh Hashanah. There's midas hadin, there's midas harachamim, right? According to midas hadin, right? According to midas hadin, the very slightest disobedience is. I mean, if you take the muscle of a king, a king. A king, he has the right for the slightest imperfection or the slightest non-compliance. He has a right to kill the person. Right? He has a right to kill the person. Right? Person was disobedient. If you're disobeying the king, doesn't matter if you're disobeying him in a great way or a small way. No. In all cases, it's a disobedience against the king. Likewise, Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? The Svarim speak about in terms of when a person's thinking about doing what we call a cheshbon nefesh, a soul-searching personal inventory of his behaviors and his thoughts and his speech. So he has to realize that even the smallest thing that could possibly be wrong, if you're looking at it from the smallness of what's not being non-compliance, it's okay. It's a small thing. It's non-compliance in a small way. But if you look at it against the non-compliance against the wishes of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the one who creates you, he creates the universe, he sustains you, he sustains the universe, he's giving you everything, and now you're not complying with his will, for whatever possible reason you may have, and nevertheless it's still non-compliance, right? So the slightest non-compliance, right? The slightest insubordination is punishable, right? Punishable, right? The slightest insubordination is punishable because you're not being insubordinate to a small, insignificant thing. You're being insubordinate to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, the creator of the universe, and the one who sustains it and sustains you, and created it and creates you. So that insubordination is much greater and serious than this insubordination against someone who's very small and ineffective. Okay.
So in the example of the king who says off with his head, irregardless of how serious the crime is, that is judging him under Midas Adin.
Right. That's right.
And
That's what
that's not what happens to us. We
right.
judge in a different way.
Yeah, we're hopeful that Hashem judges us, right, with the rachamim v'chemla rather than v'diktuk gadol. I mentioned there's a mashal that there was a royal feast, right? There was a royal feast, and the king was sitting at his royal table with his royal clothes, eating his royal food, right? And
Right.
And a waiter comes by, and a little piece of gravy falls off the waiter's tray and falls onto the lapel of the king's royal clothes on his royal lapel. Okay, so the waiter, when he saw that happen, he took the whole tray and he dumped the tray in the lap of the king. So the king says, take him out to the gallows. Take him out to the gallows tomorrow. We're not going to interrupt the festivities now, but tomorrow morning, take him to the gallows. So next morning, king's sitting there in his court and getting the gallows ready. So the waiter's getting ready to be strung up. So the king says to the waiter, he says, okay, before you're hung, just tell me one thing. What caused you to dump the whole tray of food on my lap? So the waiter said to the king, I did it for the king's benefit. King says, what? You did it for my benefit? How is that to my benefit that you dumped the whole food into my lap? So the waiter explained as follows. And look, the little drop of gravy that fell on your lapel, right? So you noticed it and I noticed it, and maybe a few people noticed it. And I knew, right? I knew from past experience, because this has happened before, that you've sent people to the gallows because of the slightest spot on their clothes. And I said to myself, this is not fair to the king. The king is going to get a reputation of being a very, very cruel self-centered person. That's a little drop of gravy gets on his lapel. He's killing people because of a little drop of gravy. So I said, I'm not going to allow this to happen to the king. I'm going to dump all the food on the king's lap. And for that, people will understand why I'm going to be taken out to the gallows. So I did it for the king's benefit. So people shouldn't think the king is overly cruel. So the king heard that, and okay, so he gave him a pardon. He pardoned him. Pardon. Right? That's I'm just using this mashal as an example of diktuk gadol. What is this diktuk gadol? Is being overly or absolutely critical, being absolute goymer, diktuk goymer, absolutely critical. Meaning for the slightest insubordination, the slightest drop of gravy on the royal clothes, right, will receive the king's wrath and the punishments that follow from it in full. So that's what we call the diktuk gadol. It's a complete and absolute criticism and analysis of a person's actions. So we really can't stand up to that. If a person's actions were really completely, absolutely evaluated to the infinite degree, so very few would be able to stand in din. Very few of us would actually be able to stand, meaning exist and persevere through the examination process of all our deeds. Right? I'll give you an example. That you have an opportunity to go to shul and hear chazoras hashatz. Right? Have a chazoras hashatz. You're supposed to know when you're saying amen to the various different brachas of the chazoras hashatz. When he's repeating Simona Esrei, we're supposed to stand there and think about what the shatz is saying. And when it comes to the end of the bracha, we say amen, and we should be thinking specific thoughts. Should be thinking specific thoughts about what those brachas mean and what the amen is, and how the amen fits into the statement that the shatz is making, the shliach tzibur is making. So a person has to train himself to think these special thoughts. So could be many people when they're saying amen in the context of chazoras hashatz, shacharis, and mincha, right? They're simply saying amen as we say nashim mitzvahs nashim umumada. I mean, they're just doing it automatically, right? They're not giving much thought and depth to the mitzvah that they're doing by saying amen to the shliach tzibur brachas. So if it would be evaluated in diktuk gadol, if Hashem would be completely critical of all our actions, very few could pass a test in saying, answering honestly that they have the proper kavanas, intentions, and meanings and understandings of the amens that they're saying simply through the chazoras hashatz. And I'm just using that as one minor example, right? So therefore, we're hopeful that Hashem doesn't look at us too critically. Okay, let's continue.
Uke'inyan ma she'amru chachmenu, and
Zichron Livracha.
Zichron Livracha, and regarding the matter of what the sages of blessed memory say.
Right. This is similar to what Chazal Zichron Livracha have said in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah.
Kol hama'avir al mi dosav me averin lo al kol Peshav.
Peshav, right. Kol hamavir al midosav. Anyone who overlooks offenses to himself. Anyone who overlooks offenses to himself, mavir lo kol pashav. They overlook all his his negligences.
His negligence.
Right. So just as a person, if he's not overly critical of what people do to him, so Kadosh Baruch is not going to be overly critical to what he does to Hashem.
But that's really something different from what led up to it.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you mean?
Well, we said that a person should receive in accordance with what he deserves, but should be judged with mercy and not overly critically.
Right. He's what the Ramchal is explaining over here is that it's true. Really, there are two extremes of the spectrum. There's midas harachamim, compassion, and there's midas adin, right? Strict judgment. A strict judgment. Now, strictly speaking, a person should be judged absolutely through the rewards coming to him through his actions. Right? That's what strict judgment says. On the other hand, you have compassion, which says, well, let's give the person a little bit of a break here. Let's be a little bit more understanding for him, right? So the point that the Ramchal is interjecting over here is that a person has the ability to change the strength of the strictness that's going to be applied to his judgment based on his behavior with other people. That judgment has to take place. There must be judgment. There must be an evaluation and analysis of a person's actions, his thoughts, his speech, right? That must take place. How can, meaning within our ability to change the strict judgment and temper it with mercy and compassion, we have the ability to do that, because to expect that the judgment is going to simply be changed from a strict judgment to a merciful judgment, we don't have a right to expect that to happen automatically. So therefore, there are certain things which we have in our ability to do, which will temper the strict judgment. And this is one of them. He's giving an example. He's giving an example that kol ma'avir al midosav ma'avir al kol poshav. A person's going to overlook those wrongdoings, affronts to his own self. If he's going to overlook what people do to him, right, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to overlook Mida Keneged Mida. Is going to use the Ramchal is going to explain Mida Keneged Mida. Hashem's going to overlook what that person does as an affront to HaKadosh Baruch. So therefore, this is an example where a person has the ability through his own actions to actually temper the strictness of the judgments that's going to be applied to him, and we'll see how that applies to specifically to Rosh Hashanah as well. You following, Lou?
Well, I follow the point. I just don't see the connection between. It seems like it's bringing a raya. It's saying this is in accordance with what the sages say. So that seems to me to say it's a raya, but the raya is not it's not applicable to what it's trying to support.
Well, no, again, he's bringing the raya is because he said that a person should be judged strictly according to his behavior, right?
No, we said he
Right.
should receive reward strictly according to his behavior, but be judged
Right.
with compassion and mercy.
Well, it could be that he's going to be. It could be that he's going to be judged with compassion and mercy, right?
Right.
Meaning the judgment is going to be the point being like this: the more that you can have your judgment take place, strictly speaking, with strict judgment, the better off you're going to be, right? So how can you have mercy and compassion be introduced into strict judgment? So if part of what you are doing through your behaviors, right, is involved with compassion and mercy, so then the strict judgment that's going to be applied with you is going to be a strict judgment that also has combined with it mercy and compassion.
Right. Okay. I mean, yeah, I get that. I get the point. I just, if I were writing it, I would not structure it as a raya.
Well, I mean, when he says Ke'inyan, the Ke'inyan doesn't mean to be. He's not trying to bring a strong raya. He's trying to bring an illustration.
Well, I would say rather than an illustration, I would say a mechanism that he's saying, how can it be that you're going to get rewarded according to justice, but judged according to compassion and mercy? The mechanism for which that can happen is that you're acting in such a way that you become meritorious of the mercy, because you're just as you're overlooking the strictness, so the strictness is overlooked for you.
Right. All right. Well, I'll tell you. We're going to deal with this more. I think. Let's see a little bit more. But we're going to deal with this more as maybe we'll have a chance to do a little more depth, or maybe we'll do a review of this tomorrow as well. We'll see how it applies. He's going to explain more on this particular point.
Okay, Victor, are we
we
finish for today?
Let's see if we can go. Let's try a few more lines.
Ti hare ze mida kineged mida. Because this is the principle of measure for measure. Kamo shehu mutar kad utro low. I don't know what this word vav tav resh is.
That's from the word vater. From that's a vitor. Vitor is like
to give up on your rights,
like overlooking.
Right, to be mevater, like you say,
to
you say to the child, will
overlook
you be mevater? That means he's going to give in.
Right.
Is that it? Yeah. Okay. So
Yes.
it's like when someone is mevater on what is rightfully his.
Or yeah, Yeah, right. What he can expect rightfully, what he can expect.
Okay. ונמצא שמסנגים עמו ברחמים. And we find that he is treated with rachamim, with mercy.
Right. So okay, well, look, we'll stop here. But basically, this point is another illustration that when you see that a person is not strict with others, so then they're not going to be strict with him as well. Okay, we'll review this again tomorrow, and to get it a little bit more clear. I mean, okay, let's take a short break. We'll start the Mr. Brewster in a few minutes. Mr.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
you.